Okay, so let's talk about the oral elements of public speaking. And so what we're talking about specifically is paralanguage. Paralanguage, it's similar to a language, right? We understand what a language is, right? We have certain meanings, like I've chosen the word phone to represent my phone, right? And so paralanguage, it's close to what language is, right? It's close to direct meanings like phone, but instead it's a close language, meaning you understand that when I heighten my tone, that I'm happy, and when I lower my tone, I'm sad, right? It's not a actual language, right? There's no actual language that says I mean, there are some languages where you literally are tonal, where you have to up and move the tones up and down. But for English, at least, that's not how our language works. And so it's called a paralanguage. It's close to a language, but it's not an actual language. And so, right, it's not often what is said, but how it's said, right? And so, one of the goals in our public speaking is to avoid monotone speaking. For some reason, when people get nervous, sometimes they speak a little bit too quickly, and then you get issues, right? So, oral language is all the things you're doing with your voice, right? We talked about before in the last one what you're doing with your body. Now, think about what you're doing with your voice. And so, you try to sound interesting, try to heighten, and try to have some pauses and other things that can make it, we see the first delivery video how to give a good TED talk, right? He does a lot of pauses, he does a little wait, he makes things sound important, right? There's ways in which we can use language to understand. It's even interesting from a stand-up comedy perspective, because I used to do stand-up. There are certain times where if you just pause, the audience would start laughing, and it's not because whatever you said was funny. It's because audiences understand the language, that because that person paused, this is the space and time where you are supposed to laugh. It is incredible to see just how delivery and paralanguage translates. And so here's a number of different ways. So first of all, speech rate. How quick are you talking? The average person talks about 100 words per minute. So if you ever go on the outlines and it says 400 to 500 words, I'm not hard hitting on those 400 or 500 words. I'm just saying that is the average you should be at if you want to do a 4 to 5 minute speech, because we naturally talk at about 100 words per minute. Okay. And so be comfortable in the pauses, right? Naturally, we are speaking, adrenaline's rushing through our system. We want to speak quickly, we want to speak fast. This will lower with practice. Once we practice, we get into a natural rhythm. But remember, you need to be comfortable in the pauses. Be completely fine, just. Okay? It's completely fine to just pause. And in fact, if you're speaking too quickly, one of the best ways to stop speaking so quickly is to just take a deep breath and then continue, right? You lose a second or two. It's not a big deal, but it makes your speech sound way better, especially if you get that adrenaline rush, especially with speech anxiety. That's something we naturally do. Take a moment to breathe. And we often slur our words together. So practicing tongue twisters can help before your speech. So if you ever want to look up some tongue twisters, my favorite is Unique New York. New York's unique. You know you need Unique New York. Red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather, big black bug bit, bled blue blood. Big black bug bled blue blood. Some of my favorites, you could do the woodchuck one. I like if two witches would watch two watches, which witch would watch which watch. That one's fun. There's an old game show opening that's really fun to do fast. Spin it, let's begin it, bear grin it. When you're in it, you can win it in 10 minutes if you spin it. I think the game show is called Spin It. I used to do that one really fast. There's some fun ones if you want to practice. I slid a sheet, I slid, and on the slid sheet I sit. If you mess that one up, you accidentally say a bad word. There's another one. I am not the fig plucker. I'm the fig plucker's mate. I'm out there plucking figs because that fig plucker's late. That one's real spicy. But yeah, just practice enunciating your words. Articulatory agility is a marvelous ability. Manipulate with dexterity the tongue, the teeth, the lips. Right? Another one, edited it. Right? There's these words that can trip us up and make us sound nervous. And oftentimes when we slur a word, we start apologizing all of a sudden. It's fine. Right? But just practice enunciating a little bit. So I have a few of those, a tip of the tongue takes a trip of 3 twirls. I already did that one. I'm the most pleasant mother pheasant plucker to pluck a mother pheasant. I think that one's really fun. Pitch and clutter. So we oftentimes modulate our pitch just because we want to make someone feel good, right? So when you're talking to my cat, right? When I talk to Oliver, when I talk to Kiki, I'm like, "Hi, Kiki, how are you?" Right? It's embarrassing how like high pitch we talk to our animals, right? Same thing when you talk to babies. If you've ever worked in customer service, hi, welcome to Olive Garden. My name is Zach. I worked at Olive Garden for 7 years. Right? We heighten our words. It's a way of coming off pleasant, a way of coming off regular. I remember I had a landlord who was actually surprised the first time they ever heard me talking to like a close friend of mine, because I'm always like, "Hi, landlord, how are you?" And then I got a call from my friend. I was like, "How you doing?" My voice immediately dropped, and she realized, "Oh, you pitch up when you're around me," and I was like, "Yeah, like you're my landlord." Um, yeah, thinking your speech is a conversation. It will be performed, but conversation is the best. We like people who conversate with us. Verbal clutter refers to ums, likes, and other things we use to fill our speech. Oftentimes, the reason that we use verbal filler is just because we're speaking too quickly. And so if you just slow down your speech, you can get rid of like 75% of your verbal filler. And it's literally because, your brain is so nervous, you're speaking so quickly. It's like putting the train's coming and you can't put the train tracks down fast enough to give the train space to make a coherent sentence. And so you want to slow that train down, slow down your rate of speech so your brain can put those sentences together ahead of time. Usually, if we're just speaking at a normal rate, we won't make all of those decisions. But if I start speaking fast, it's really hard to keep this sentence going. And so I have to slow down with things like and because I just can't put that sentence together faster than my mouth can move. This is an old activity we'll do. I don't think it's any important. But yeah, fake it till you make it is the golden rule. That old activity, I used to do it with my other classes when we were in person. I won't do it for y'all, but just think of a different ways in which you can perform the same sentence. Like, I know her, right? I do this activity with on my classes, obviously. And so I'll say, how many different ways can you say the phrase, I know her, right? I know her. Oh, I know her. I know her. I know her. Ooh, I know her. Right? There's all these different ways in which I can just change the tone of my voice and I can change how that sentence sounds. Like, I know her. Well, I know her. Like there's all these different ways. I know her. Like even every single word can be stressed differently and you make a completely different sentence. Right? And so if I can say I know her 10 different ways, think of how many ways you can say your speech, right? It's nearly infinite, right? It's nearly infinite. And that's kind of the beauty of public speaking is that, one of the famous things is that no speech is ever finished. Essays are finished, right? But no speech is ever finished. You can always give that speech again in a different way and even improve on it, right? And so when people on the speech and debate team give their speeches, they memorize their speech and then they give the same speech for about 10 months. And you would be impressed and surprised by the transformation a speech can go when you repeat it for 10 months. The amount of like every single word and the perfection of tone and pitch and speech rate and hand gestures and everything just improves over 10 months. And so that's a different speech. Even though it's the same words, maybe it's not the exact same words. Maybe they changed it up at some point in the time frame, but it's basically the same exact speech. And over 10 months, it gets, chiseled and refined. And if they could continue giving that speech and improve it even more. I've gone back to old performances when I was on my speech and debate team and thought like, oh, like this is a new thing I could have added to that performance. A performance I did for like 4 months today, right? Like you can keep going and going and going. And so anyway, that is oral delivery of speeches. And so enjoy your next activity that's coming up.